And good afternoon, everyone who is attending this Intro to Defense Innovation and Ask Me Anything from all over the place. I see Florida, I see Ohio. I'm sure we got lots of folks from Texas. I see Kevin there from Austin. I see Greer, Utah. Well, thank you all for coming to this event, Intro to Defense Innovation and Ask Me Anything. My name is Kevin Landtroop. I am the Vice President of Defense here at Capital Factory, and I have with me today some really cool guests that I want to introduce you guys to. So we have Zeke Topolosky from the Army's XTechSearch Program. We have Mike Karaki from the Combat Capabilities Development Command's Ground Vehicle Systems Center, and we have Anita McGinthy, a strategist at Army Futures Command. We are going to talk to you guys today about two things. One, we're going to talk about this really awesome program we have called Fed SUPERNOVA that we're kicking off in July. It's going to be July 14th and 15th. And we're also going to talk to you about a really innovative program that Army Futures Command has just launched. Well, they launched a couple of months ago called the Innovation Combine. And so that's why we have these great folks here from XTechSearch, from GVSC, and from AFC to talk about those programs. So I'd like to turn it over to y'all now and give Anita and Mike and Zeke a chance to introduce themselves. So Anita, please tell us about yourself. Tell us about AFC and tell us about what you do for AFC.
Okay, so myself, I'm apparently an animated Bitmoji that looks a lot like my real self. I am a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. I'm a strategist. I'm a project manager for the G357 in in the current operations section of Army Futures Command. Army Futures Command, if you have any general questions about Army Futures Command, I can answer, but what I'm doing for this specific project is kind of like a tiny little metaphor of Army Futures Command, where leveraging AFC and also the Army Acquisition Executive, the ASALT for the Army, combining them, creating some very, very powerful tools for innovation. And I'd like to think what we're doing is just like AFC does soldier-centered design. We're kind of doing innovator-centered programs here. So asking innovators, asking venture cap, the folks who we really want to bring into our ecosystem, what do you guys want? What's useful to you? And bringing that to life and realizing that in this program. And that's all about me and AFC and my role in it.
Thank you, Anita. Mike, tell us about yourself and GVSC.
Sure. Just a little bit about myself. Graduated from the University of Michigan. Go Blue. I heard somebody from Ohio was there, so hopefully they heard that. I'm an industrial engineer by trade, served in many roles within Ground Vehicle Systems Center, formerly TARDEC, since about 2004. To include projects in vehicle protection, occupant protection, vehicle demonstrators, business development, materials engineering, just name a few. Currently supporting this Innovation Combine project, which is all about procurement and innovative acquisition. And lastly, I'm a sucker for all things Detroit, even those ever so frustrating Detroit Lions. But a little bit about my organization. So I am part of the Combat Capabilities Development Command. Like I said, the Ground Vehicle Systems Center, located at the Detroit Arsenal in Warren, Michigan. Our mission is to develop, integrate, demonstrate, and sustain ground vehicle system capabilities to support Army modernization priorities and improve readiness. My official role in GVSC is I serve as a branch chief in our Ground Vehicle Materials Engineering Division. I'm on a special assignment right now supporting the Innovation Combine. And I'm doing that because of some prior experience I've had with really pushing the boundaries with acquisition events. Namely, last year doing an event called Flash to Bang, which was a Shark Tank-like pitch day event. So that's me in a nutshell, and very looking forward to working with my colleagues, Zeke and Anita, pushing this Innovation Combine through.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna age myself a little bit, but anytime somebody says this is me in a nutshell, I always think of that scene from Austin Powers when Dr. Evil is. Never mind. We'll move on to Zeke. Zeke, tell us about yourself, and we're gonna get to talk a little bit about XTechSearch in a minute, which I think is an awesome program. But tell us about you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. It's good to be here. I'm Zeke Topolosky. I work at the Army Research Laboratory in Delphi, Maryland, near College Park, home of the Terrapins, where I graduated from, and fear all things turtle. And Army Research Lab is the corporate lab for the Army. So we do all the basic and applied research that covers pretty much all commodity areas that end up as products for the Army, but at the basic and applied research level, including all the extramural research that goes on with university partners in the country. And the results from Army Research Lab research and engineering work goes to feed the engineering centers that are more commodity focused, like where Mike works at the Ground Vehicle Systems Center. So where I sit is at the research lab that does that basic and applied research, but we also do a lot of partnership and strategic partnership building. My current role is in the Strategic Partnership Office, which supports the Office of the Director at Army Research Lab. And the goal of this office is to develop strategic partnerships, engagements with the academic community, with the industry community, with other organizations within the Army and the operational Army, as well as the other government communities. So my background is I've had a mechanical engineering degree, and now I do a lot of communicating and negotiating and partnership building, and really enjoy it. So this fits right in my wheelhouse, doing this work with Innovation Combine. And a little bit later, I'll talk about the Army XTechSearch Prize Competition Program, which I helped manage.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I am Kevin Landtroop. I'm the VP of Defense at Capital Factory. So a little bit about me, graduated from West Point in 1998, spent a little bit of time as an armored cav guy. Then I went to law school here in the great city of Austin, Texas at the University of Texas. Spent about 12 years practicing law. Anybody who has spent 12 years practicing law would probably tell you that they'd rather do something else. And so I chose to do that. And now I I kind of do two core things. One is I make it my job to really know what all the different defense programs are that are out there that are looking to find emerging technology from non-traditional sources, which is mostly, from our perspective, venture-backed startups. And then the second thing is I help our companies access those programs by providing them with awareness, education, and the relationships that they need to navigate what is becoming a simpler government contracting process, but still is not the most simple thing in the whole world. But hey, that's business. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the deck? I am going to tell y'all about Fed SUPERNOVA. So Fed SUPERNOVA is, think of it as South by Southwest, except purely defense focused and completely virtual. That's the experience that we're trying to create. This is not just another trade show. This is really a place where we want people to be able to learn, connect, and create value for themselves and their companies. So what's it going to consist of? Well, it's going to have some traditional content that you would find at any other conference or trade show. So we'll have keynotes and panels, but we're also going to be doing curated meetings between startups and investors and big defense industry customers and companies that are big defense industry customers and vendors that you may not necessarily think of in those ways, such as Amazon Web Services or Booz Allen or Deloitte or Microsoft. We're going to have government representatives from Army Futures Command, including some of the folks that are on this webinar with me right now, but also the Texas National Guard, which if you're here in Texas, you should know that the Texas Military Department is a super innovative organization, and they've helped tons of Texas startups connect with programs such as the AFWERX Open Topic SBIR. They have been MOU signers on multiple Phase 2 awards for Texas companies, helping get those technologies into the hand of warfighters. But we're also going to do the Army Futures Command Innovation Combine. And so the reason why we chose the dates in mid-July was because those dates signify the 2-year anniversary of the announcement that Army Futures Command would be activated in Austin, Texas. So we're very excited about that. And we're also going to do a Capital Factory $100,000 investment challenge in the field of human performance. Hopefully, Rebecca can post the link to that challenge in the chat window. If not, we'll send out the information afterwards. But we announced that yesterday, and we're very excited to start driving your solutions towards that challenge. So Capital Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurship in Texas. We have we onboard over 120 companies into our startup accelerator each year and maintain an active portfolio of over 300 companies on any given year. And obviously that is growing. The center of gravity is all about big events that are relevant to entrepreneurship and technology that bring in over 200,000 people into our space. And that becomes an incredible environment for big corporations, investors, and startups to find each other and find the other things that they need. Because of that, we became a center of gravity for the Department of Defense with first Defense Innovation Unit in 2016. At the time, it was Defense Innovation Unit Experimental, DIUX. But then in 2018, both AFWERX and Army Futures Command came to Austin, and culminating with the opening of the Army Applications Laboratory space on our 8th floor in February of 2019. So we have produced and hosted lots of innovation experiences for our Defense Department customers. On March 6th, a lot of that changed. That was the day that Austin Mayor Steve Adler declared a state of emergency for the city of Austin, effectively canceling South by Southwest, the annual technology conference. So what you see on the right side of that picture was what happened. So that was March 6th. On March 12th, 6 days later, we transitioned the AFWERX Spark Collider Pitch Bowl and StratFi Showcase from an in-person 3-day event to a fully virtual 1-day event. that had over 88 pitches, 2,000 attendees, almost $600 million in government contract awards, and just awesomeness. I'm trying to remember the number of individual virtual sessions. I think it was in the neighborhood of 50 or 60. So that's what has happened with Capital Factory is we are still doing exactly the same things that we have always done, which is connecting startups, investors, big customers. In the defense space, we do that around dual use and defense capability gaps and problems. But now we're just creating that same value in the virtual world. And it's not just about events. So this is a shot of me having a meeting with some of our friends from the Texas Military Department, which is the umbrella organization for the Texas Army and Air National Guard that reports directly to the governor, about how we were going to help them solve their innovation problem, which is that it's a deal flow problem. They can't connect with folks anymore because they can't get into any physical spaces and they can't aggregate. So we're trying to help solve that problem for them as well. And Fed SUPERNOVA is kind of a way that we want to do that. So we're expecting, we've conservatively estimated, in excess of 1,000 participants. I think we're going to get north of 2,000 if with 3 days to market the AFWorks event, we can get 2,000 people. I think Fed SUPERNOVA should at least be targeting that number. We know of about 70 startups at the moment, or non-traditional companies that we're going to be showcasing, and those are just the ones that we're being delivered about. There's going to be plenty of pathways for other companies to participate as well. We're targeting our venture capital network to do those one-on-one investor meetings, like I said, in the Fed SUPERNOVA VIP. And then, of course, we're going to be bringing in our industry partners, which is, Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 CEOs and executives, and the press. So part of what makes Capital Factory different from a lot of other accelerator spaces is if you go into any other accelerator space or startup-focused co-working space, you're going to see logos from big companies who are financial contributors, sponsors for those spaces. In the case of Capital Factory's Innovation Council, they are truly a council, and they are truly there to try to be innovative. So they are active participants in our ecosystem as customers, mentors, and just as an example, both AWS and Microsoft provide cloud credits to our companies as active partners for those companies. And many of our companies do, whether it's partnership agreements, pilot projects, or act as subcontractors to many of these companies on multiple, both commercial deals and government and defense facing deals. So Fed SUPERNOVA, what's it going to be? This is the question that I get all the time. Well, it's going to have kind of your traditional tracked content, the same thing that we would do inside South by Southwest or inside Austin Startup Week. And then wrapped around that tracked content and running through some of that tracked content is going to be other things that Capital Factory is known for doing. So we'll have a morning coffee that'll be a place for you to do networking and connect with people. We're going to have obviously keynote speeches from VIP speakers in government, defense, and industry. We're going to have epic office hours inside our VIP. So if you choose to participate in Fed SUPERNOVA as a VIP, a virtually important person, you're going to get a chance to have curated meetings with customers, with investors in a platform called Sococo, which is a new tool, an Austin-based startup actually that's creating a really innovative virtual workspace. And we're going to do lots of pitches. So as we're going to talk about in a minute about Innovation Combine, the Army is going to be hosting 8 very special pitches, and 2 of those companies are going to receive big deals. But Capital Factory is going to be doing our own pitches, where we're going to have 5 or 6 companies pitch against a human performance topic and win a $100,000 investment. But then inside the crawl, you're going to have a chance to showcase and do a more of a showcase than a pitch. That way, you're going to have a chance to pitch investors in VIP. We definitely want a lot of companies being able to talk about their companies, talk about what they need, whether it's from investors, customers, or mentors, and showcase those technologies as they go through this. So what are the tracks? These are still in flux. In fact, one of our big sponsors has already told us that they want to do something around operational data science. Apparently, we don't have enough AI in the tracks, so we're going to do a little bit of AI in the form of some operational data science, I think. So this may fluctuate a little bit, but it's a pretty good overview of the kind of technologies that we think are interesting to government innovation programs. So, the folks that are on the webinar with me right here, like Army's XTech search program is definitely interested in all of these things, as well as our investors are interested in those technologies because they are truly dual use. And we've got a lot of companies that we know we can showcase. Okay, apparently that video is not going to play. Let me try it again. Okay, so I'm being told that there was no audio on that. So if Justin can figure out how to make the audio work between now and the end of this deck, I will play that little clip of General Murray talking about, what Army Futures Command is looking for at the Capitol Factory and how he sees our space. One of the things that we're super proud of that we have done at Capitol Factory over year one is, as I mentioned, Capitol Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurs, and that's really our core value proposition. But over the period of time from 2016 to 2019, with the opening of the Army Applications Lab, we kind of evolved as the center of gravity for the Department of Defense through a bunch of different innovation programs. And in the first year, our companies had a lot of success just by being a part of that ecosystem. As we drew the year to a close and we started to tally up all the awards that have been done, and I say year one really kind of ended with March of 2020, because that was, the opening really was South by Southwest 2019. But 31 of our companies won $63 million in awards from different innovation programs, and those programs consisted of the AFWERX Open Topic, SBIR, Phase 1s, Phase 2s, and StratFis. It consisted of being invited to participate in Army Applications Laboratory's first capabilities accelerator, the Field Artillery Autonomous Resupply. It included some individual contract awards from Army Applications Laboratory. It included some other transaction agreements from consortium-based awards. It included National Science Foundation. It included DARPA awards. It included some subcontracts with our partners. It included a lot of different types of awards. And that was really what stuck to me, was not just the total amount of contracts awarded and dollars awarded, but the range of programs that our companies were finding access to. And that was really not anything that we did deliberately. It was just our company showing up, being part of the ecosystem, us creating that gravity, and folks getting, like I said, the awareness, the information, and the relationships. So for year two, which has been somewhat disrupted by COVID, but we're getting it back on track, we have decided to do some things more deliberately to do two things. One is to kind of standardize and productize that the way that companies can, again, receive the awareness, information, and the relationships that they need to access these programs, but also scale it across the state of Texas. And we're doing that with things like defense academies. We're doing it with things like our SBIR accelerator, and we're doing it with programs like Fed SUPERNOVA, which one of the things that I love about the way we're able to do what we do now in a virtual space is you don't have to come to Austin anymore. You can simply click and join from anywhere. So here's a good overview of the types of speakers that we've had coming through the space over the last couple of years. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, Jason Kelly, another West Point grad and former Army guy who is here in Austin, who leads IBM's global blockchain, Secretary of Defense Carter, Secretary of Defense Esper, who at the time was the Secretary of the Army. We've had a few secretaries. We've had several service secretaries through the space, and again, multiple VIPs in industry. So if you're interested in being a part of Fed SUPERNOVA, reach out to partnerships@capitalfactory.com, and they can tell you about tickets. They can tell you about how to get integrated as a sponsor. They can tell you about how to have a booth. They can tell you about how to get into the VIP, and they can tell you about how to see what we're about to talk about right now, which is the Army's Innovation Combine program. And so I will now turn this over back to our distinguished panelists, who are much smarter than I am, to have a discussion. So, and don't forget, I believe that we are posting questions in the chat room or in the chat space. So if you guys have questions as we go through the discussion here. We will get to those. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of this somewhat brief moderated discussion. So let's start with Innovation Combine. And I'll start with Anita. What is the Innovation Combine?
So the Innovation Combine is a competition where companies compete for government contracts within valid Army requirements, as well as cash. So it's basically taking the best of ASALT's XTechSearch and CCDC's flash debang, putting them together and listening to the what our core, I guess I'll call them customer wants, which is opportunity, access, and the ability to access even the companies that maybe aren't the ultimate winners of the pitch competition, who are innovative, who have potential, who are working, and who have some valid ideas and valid technology that not only is dual use, but the Army has already decided it's going to spend money on for the future. So all of those things together allowed us to come up with the idea of not only having the pitch competition, but giving the companies that didn't quite make the final pitches, that in a previous phase still had valid white paper submissions, getting our audience access to these innovators because we recognize their potential, and getting them networked in. So it's ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a networking event with all of that networking focused around the Army's problems, which are communicated in the acquisition world through validated requirements. And that's what it started as, and that's what it remains. I will just address some of the questions I've already seen about the Futures Conference. The Futures Conference was canceled, and that's the Innovation Combine.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. And so talking about finding ways to get the all of the selected companies through the Innovation Combine to really integrate well into the Innovation Combine event, but also into Fed SUPERNOVA. If any of the companies who've been selected are actually on this call, you should have received an email message or will receive one maybe today. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it's actually in my list of Google Docs that I have to review this afternoon so that we can finalize the copy and send it out. But we're going to host an Innovation Combine Academy. We're going to invite all 28 of those winners into the Capital Factory virtual space to learn all about how you can find value through Fed SUPERNOVA as part of the Innovation Combine cohort, as well as make sure that those final 8 pitches are as sharp as they can be so that Mike can get exactly the technology that he needs for his warfighters. So I think we might have covered this a second ago, Anita, but so like, what's the audience? Who are we trying to, you said networking, who do we want these companies to be able to network with?
So the easy answer is there's no one we don't want them to network with. So we want them to get exposure to anyone that understands how to do business with the government or the DoD or the Army. If it's confusing to anybody, get them networked with people that have already cracked the code. So that's the demystification part. Get them networked with investors, whether that's venture cap or tech scouts from industry, who want new technologies and want innovators and want to bring them on their team. Even if the Army itself doesn't see an immediate result from a tech scout for another company getting access to this innovation, it likely will in the long term. And then academia, we want to pull in a lot of the research that academia is doing, and we saw a lot of that in some other competitions we've done. And that's one of the key audience that I think going forward in the future, I'll probably ask some of the attendees how we can reach into academia a little more. I know with competitions, it tends to get tricky. So it's really innovators, small businesses, non-traditional, and if we attract some big industry that's already got muscle behind it, and they end up connecting with people other than the Army, that's a win also.
Yeah. So General Murray was in the Capital Factory space on the 8th floor for an AUSA breakfast back in, I want to say it was February, it might have been early February or late January. And he was asked the question, like, what are you trying to get out of events like this? And his answer was that he wanted to be able to connect 3 points. And it's exactly the same 3 points that we have been trying to connect for most of the last couple of years around this defense space. And so I was super stoked to hear him answer the question that way. But he said, it's pretty simple. We want the non-traditional companies, which is small business, startups. Some small businesses are not really all that small because Small Business Association standards or Small Business Administration standards by NAICS code, you can have up to 500 employees, sometimes up to 1,000 employees, and still be qualified as a small business. But those small businesses, the venture capital community, because obviously, when Ash Carter started DIU back in 2016, the big so what of it was he wanted to create a pathway for venture-backed companies to want to do business with the DoD and be able to do business with the DoD, because there's just so much more R&D capital being deployed through the venture community than what the DoD has to spend. And then obviously the traditional industry as well, because they have the contacts, they have the contracts, they understand what program managers are buying, when they're buying it, how much they're going to spend on it, and they're probably still going to end up getting the bulk of that money anyway. But we need to be able to put those new and emerging technologies inside those signature systems that are most likely going to be provided by companies, big companies that you've already heard of. And then obviously in the center of that three-pointed triangle, the way I visualize it is, the dual use technology problem. It's the commercial solution that also solves a pain point for the Department of Defense. And so with the addition of the academia, that's exactly who we are hoping, or not hoping, who we will attract to the Innovation Combine. So Mike, moving on to you. So what are the problems that the Innovation Combine is trying to solve?
Yeah, so the Innovation Combine is trying to do a few things across the ecosystem. For industry, it provides interested organizations with a platform to pitch their technology solutions to the government, kind of like you would see in the commercial sector, sort of like you would see in the television show Shark Tank. The focus is on lessening the paperwork burden on those companies, so they value doing business with the government in a contest-like atmosphere. And I'm not going to lie, that is something I have to be reminded of by my colleagues as well as we continually refine the process. I mean, Zeke knows this very well. There's some processes that are just ingrained in our minds, and we're trying to break those barriers down and streamline as much as possible. So for the government, I think we want access to companies who don't traditionally do business with us, as it's been stated, yet have some really innovative technology that we could put to good use. It also allows us to pilot these pitch style competitions to see what procurement strategies work and what procurement strategies just don't work, and then revisiting our processes with each iteration.
Fantastic. So I can see already in the chat there's some questions about the topics and stuff like that. So what are the two topics?
Our first topic, in no particular order, has to do with energy storage, power and energy. Our second one has to do with novel materials, specifically in the realm of survivability. I do see some questions there. We do not focus on tactical vehicles only, if that's referring to GVSC or the Innovation Combine. I do see a question asking about the next Innovation Combine, and kind of as I was saying, this is the first time we've done an Innovation Combine. While we have done a pitch day competition in the past, what's really unique about the Innovation Combine is that it blends what Zeke is going to talk about soon, what he does really well with the XTechSearch program, and what we kind of did in GVST last year using our other transaction agreement contract mechanism, kind of blending the two together. Maybe not super seamlessly at first time we've done it, almost a pilot process, taking away a lot of lessons learned on the fly. Definitely going to document lessons learned at the back end and try to improve the entire thing so that we have more pitch competitions in the future and can get access to even more non-traditional small businesses.
Fantastic. So you mentioned so there's two things that folks may not know a whole lot about. One is GVSC, and the other one is an OTA. So talk about what GVSC is, how GVSC relates to Army Futures Command, and maybe a little bit about the org structure, so folks have an idea about what this is. So like, why is Anita and Mike on the same screen?
Yeah, sure. Org structure wise, it's pretty easy, but I'll talk about GVSC. So GVSC, as I mentioned earlier, we really focus on innovative research and development and engineering to support specifically our current and future ground systems, tactical, combat, support systems, bridging, some watercraft. And
so to translate what Mike just said to like non-military stuff, tanks, trucks, haulers, things that carry fuel, things that carry supplies, things that carry troops, and things that make other things fly through the air and explode.
Yeah. I think anything on the ground except the soldier is what we, and again, some watercraft, but trailers, bridging, robots, large and small, and all the subsystems that go in to support that, right? All the powertrain, electrification, fuel systems, anything that goes into that tank, truck, or robot. As far as org-wise, GVSC is one of 7 organizations under the Combat Capabilities Development Command, CCDC. And CCDC is simply a subordinate command under the Army Futures Command. So AFC, CCDC, and then GVSC is one of 7 under that umbrella.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. So now about the OTA. So tell us what the OTA is and what it does, and why the military has started leveraging these a little bit more. Although, as mutual friends of ours would say and do say frequently on LinkedIn, the OTA isn't new to GVSC. You guys have been pumping money through that thing for years.
Yeah, from my understanding, I think NASA stood up their first OTAs in the 50s, kind of really tackle the getting to the moon problem statement first and foremost. So I think that's where it originated. But an OTA is an other transaction agreement. It's simply a mechanism used by the government to obtain and advance certain research, prototypes, maybe even production projects. It's a non-FAR based acquisition approach to contracting. How it is used, it can be quicker, but not always. It can be easier, but not always. But what it can be is very flexible in how it's used to achieve your procurement goals. The prime example is these pitch competitions and this innovation combine. We at GVSC have had success with OTAs because we specifically use something known as a consortium model approach. What that means is we partner with a primary organization that then creates a collection of companies, large, medium, or small, that focus their OTA projects on a specific scope, in our case, ground system technologies. Those consortium members are informed of competitions, contracting opportunities, conferences, demonstration events, membership meetings, and are encouraged to network amongst each other and partner with each other for the best possible teaming approach for a specific OTA project. And I can tell you from experience, OTAs are likely to stay within GVSC's acquisition toolkit for many, many years to come. I wouldn't say they're our primary contracting mechanism, but they're certainly used and they produce a lot of value for GVSC.
Cool. And so as I understand it, one of the big reasons why many organizations have been transitioning more to the use of an OTA is so the 2371B other transaction for prototyping. If the company is a traditional, what is termed as a traditional defense contractor, they have to put up 1/3 of the prototyping budget, whatever the total value of the prototyping contract is, out of their own funds. Typically, it would be from their internal research and development funds. However, if the company is a small business or a non-traditional, which virtually every startup is, if you're a startup and you're not a non-traditional, congratulations. You don't need to come to the Intro to Defense Innovation webinar. But yeah, so they can get 100% of the contract value, and it's that application that really has created some value for for startups, or it's a pathway that's accessible to startups, and there's an incentive both for you to work with startups and for our partners like traditional defense industry companies, Northrop Grumman, BAE Systems, General Dynamics, companies that work with GVSC fairly regularly, Textron, we can name a bunch of others who are those traditionals. But if they work or pair or partner with a non-traditional, then they can be exempted from having to put up a third of that money. The other thing that I think is really great about the OT is that the intellectual property section of the contract isn't pre-written. It can be completely negotiated. Awesome. Well, thanks, Mike. Zeke, so we are on to you, my friend. So I think probably most folks that are on this have heard of XTechSearch, but they may not really know what it is.
Yeah, thanks. I'll give a quick overview for everybody's benefit, and certainly addresses some of the questions coming through the chat, especially the ones about future innovation combines and what the topics are. So the Army, aside from our traditional FAR-based and other transaction authorities to award contracts, has decided a couple years back to pursue the authorities given by Congress to do prize competitions. And the prize competition authorities, there's two of them we can utilize within DoD, give us the opportunity to do outside of the traditional contracting space on a way to award a cash prize for significant technology achievements to small businesses, large businesses, other entities. And then there's two basic authorities that can be used. One is handed down by the Department of Commerce that's open to just US-based small businesses. And then there's another that DoD was given that's open to any entity, both domestic and foreign, to solve DoD problems. And basically the idea here is, can we create a low barrier to entry, sort of friendly front door to the Army, where people can pitch ideas, socialize concepts, and get very, very near real-time feedback on those ideas prior to pursuing a contract opportunity or entering into OTA as you're describing. So this is sort of, I would say, the first step in talking to the Army maybe isn't about money, but it's about, here's my technology, how can it best be applied, and what should I be doing in my next steps to make this an Army product? So Dr. Jetty, who's the Army Acquisition Executive, his position is the Assistant Secretary for the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, or as you've been hearing, ASALT, a couple of years back decided to launch XTechSearch. And so XTechSearch is a prize competition that is an open topic, so similar to what the Air Force is doing, where we don't prescribe the focus areas, the problem statements, or the capability gaps in this competition. It's an open topic where we try to say, look, the Army does have validated requirements. There are things we know we need. There are capability gaps we have that we've identified, documented, and are available for the public to see. But there are things that innovators are doing out there that could be applied to solve an Army problem that we're not thinking about. There's solvers out there that aren't looking at these capability gaps we have and trying to apply to Army opportunities for various reasons, most of them being that they're resource intensive to apply to traditional federal government contracts. And so basically we don't know what we don't know. So let's get an open topic on the street, and that's what XTechSearch is. And we let small businesses and innovators, submit ideas that we can put in front of the Army experts to decide, do these solve an Army problem? And if so, how can it best be applied to which use cases? And so we launched that back in May 2018, and we've done 5 competitions since. We're on our 5th one now, and this is a truly open topic. So anyone that's chatting in here saying, do you take ideas with modeling and simulation, with power and energy, whatever you're suggesting here, I would submit that XTechSearch is a good opportunity to submit those ideas. What we do under that program is we get a large network of over 200 evaluators from across the Army spectrum that include research and development, operational users, acquisition professionals, and people from headquarter elements, sort of more senior level folks, to weigh in, look at these proposals, and give you feedback as to what the best next steps are and how to apply your technology to solve an Army problem. And that contest runs over the course of a year. and we hand out prize money. So this is, as soon as we evaluate the white papers, we can send checks by way of electronic fund transfers to directly to your bank accounts for those ideas. And then as people progress through the competition, we offer more cash prizes, more networking exposure opportunities as you go. And as been discussed, this idea of doing a prize competition as sort of that friendly front door, we merged with an OTA that GVSC has to create this innovation combine. So before that, even with an OTA, where it's a little easier to work with the government than a traditional FAR-based contract, there's still a lot of upfront work that the company has to put out, and they're not getting paid for it. So this whole pay-to-play paradigm is something that plagues a lot of the small startups or the ones that are focused on the commercial sector that just don't feel like it's worth their burden to go after a DoD customer. And so by merging these two things, we gave a very low barrier to entry way to submit an idea, get prize money, get feedback, and then down select from that. And the authorities given to do these prize competitions do approve the use of the competitive process that we use in the prize competition to award contracts on the back end. So we can go from a prize competition, which is very simple to apply to, and on the judging side, much lower burden on the government people to evaluate, directly into a contract. So this is pretty new for the Army, and this is probably going to be the first or second pilot of pulling this off, and hopefully come July we'll have had success, and we can show other Army organizations, other government organizations that you can do business this way when appropriate.
That's fantastic. That was a very, very thorough explanation. And so I mentioned when I was going through the charts earlier that we had 31 companies, $63 million in DoD contract awards in what we're calling our year one. One of those companies actually is an XTech 4.0 finalist, IoT AI. Very proud of that. And JD, I don't know if you're on the call, but good job. You're making Capital Factory look good. All right, so I think we will go over to questions now. And we got a lot of them, so scrolling back up. You know what? Why don't we just have Justin just go through and start pulling them up one at a time as they come through on the screen. David, when is XTechSearch 6?
So our XTechSearch contest open every 6 months. So XTechSearch 5 just closed in April, and we have just picked the 60 companies that will pitch their technology concepts. Down select to 10 finalists this October. In October, we'll be launching XTech 6 to look for the next cohort. So every 6 months, you can visit xtechsearch.army.mil to see the current contests, the past contests, and the launching of future contests. So September, October timeframe is when we'll be launching XTechSearch 6.
Zeke, how many companies typically get an award at that first stage, that pitch stage, get a prize?
So we have the ability to invite up to 60 companies each contest to come pitch their technology. And so we look at the application process, just like Innovation Combine, as two parts. You submit your resume and then you do an interview. So we have like a 2-page white paper, and then we can invite up to 60 companies to do a in-person. Basically, you get 20 minutes time to pitch and answer questions from the Army panel.
Fantastic. So next question from Regini, could you share the Army's technology requirements? Yeah, so you mentioned it's an open topic, and the Innovation Combine topic is actually quite narrow. There's only a certain slice of companies that are going to be able to touch that, because that solution traces back to one of those technology gaps on one of the 31 signature systems that we're prioritizing. But Zeke, you mentioned XTech is open, but are there focus areas, things that are more interesting than others?
Yeah, certainly. And, Anita can talk to these well, but I think anyone in the Army for the last 2 years can talk to them well. But the Army has made it very clear with establishing the Army Futures Command that we have modernization priorities. There are 6 high-level priorities that we are focused on. So it doesn't mean that the rest of Army capabilities and equipment are not prioritized. It's just these are the most important things the Army needs to modernize with right now. But and you could just look up Army modernization priorities and you will find it. But with XTechSearch, what we try to do is yes, we share that information. So on our website, we have a resource section that you could find descriptions of those priority areas. We can also share other units descriptions of the capabilities they need as way of guiding companies on things that are worth applying for. But truly, we're also looking for those innovations that we're not thinking of. So, there's a need for both of these things. There's a need for an open topic where we let industry and the innovators out there propose ideas to us that we're not advertising for. And then there's definitely a need to take a capability gaps with validated requirements, allocated funds, and go out and find solvers for those as well. So to ask a question, what are the Army requirements? Well, that's a pretty loaded question, and there's a lot of them, and there's a very formal process to documenting them. But in addition to those requirements that you can apply to, there's also this XTechSearch as a way to submit ideas that maybe don't fit into an existing bin.
And if somebody had asked me that question in my capacity, I advise a lot of companies, capital factory companies and others. I would say go look at the aal.army website, and they have a button there that has 15 technology focus areas. And under those 15 technology focus areas, there are between 4 and 7 or 8 kind of bullet topics. And if your technology touches one of those things, then it's probably going to be relevant to Zeke. I'm just making a guess.
Yeah, Kevin, and just to validate that point, we stole, plagiarized, whatever you want to say, collaborated with AAL, and we use that exact same list. So when you submit an idea to XTechSearch, you get that same drop-down list to identify, what topic area your technology applies to. So for a number of reasons, but yeah, that's a great resource.
Awesome. So Scott, what do you recommend for a non-traditional company focusing on reverse engineering, 3D printing parts? Who wants to take that one?
So I'll make a comment. So Kevin, GBSC is now really starting to get more into what we call advanced manufacturing, which is essentially 3D printing and more than that. But if you're getting in that technology space to support ground vehicle systems, I would behoove you to start with smaller platforms like robotics and prove your concepts and your technologies out there. I would also look at legacy fleet items that are having parts that are diminishing, no longer being able to be sourced or constantly breaking in the field. That's another way to bring up your technology to the forefront of the Army. From my perspective, we're still looking to discover how we can implement 3D printing and advanced manufacturing for the future fleet. One of those ways is having in the field printable parts, but you'd have to design 3D printing up front in order to accommodate the 3D printing in theater. So there's no clear-cut answer, but I can tell you that we at GBSC are working in that 3D printing space. Rock Island is the center of excellence for additive manufacturing and 3D printing. So not sure where you're at, Scott, but Rock Island Arsenal is, if you Google them, they are the center of excellence for everything 3D printing for the Army.
Scott is in San Antonio. His company, Elevate Systems, does some pretty interesting work, reverse engineering and printing aircraft parts. And I believe are a SBIR Phase 1 winner with the Air Force for that type of technology. So they've actually already won a competitive award, Mike, so you can go to contract on them with them tomorrow. Awesome. I can put you guys together after this if you want. Let's take the next. Yeah. Is it necessary for small businesses and startups to have a civilian commercial foundation prior to work? So let me start with this one, and then I'll get y'all's perspective. Is it necessary? No. Is it advisable for a startup to start a DoD company? In my opinion, no. The kind of the word of in military technology of 2019, and it'll probably be the word of 2020, is dual use. And the whole idea behind reactivating the 2371B, the whole thesis, the whole investment thesis behind the Air Force's SBIR program, which is super agile, as well as their STRATFI program, and the Defense Innovation Unit Commercial Solutions opening, is they don't want the DoD does not want to pay to invent things unless they are truly a military technology. There's no reason for the DoD to invent autonomy, because guess what? Tesla and General Motors and a whole bunch of other people are already working on autonomy, and they are leveraging tons of emerging technologies from technology hubs all over the country. Boston's got a huge cluster of autonomy startups. So the point being, like, the model works best if you're solving a commercial problem and you find a military application for that. If you're a startup, especially, investors, they are going to think it's really cool that you got GVSC and NAMC to pay half of the money to build your prototype, or to refine one of the technologies that's going to build out your prototype. But at the end of the day, their investment is going to be based on a commercial market. And so that's the answer that I would give to our companies: is start a is have a commercial company and find a DoD application for it if it fits one of those 15 technology focus areas that's on the AAL website. But I'll throw it out to you guys to see if you agree.
Just really quick, Kevin, I mean, from Innovation Combine statistics, nearly 30% of companies who participated in the first round of Innovation Combine, nearly 30% indicated they had never done business with the DoD. So that's pretty cool.
All right, cool. Zeke, any perspective?
Yeah, I certainly think, you've mentioned, Kevin, dual use a few times, and that is one of the higher rate, weighted evaluation criteria we use for XTechSearch and Innovation Combine and these other type of things. Because, for the Army to invest in something, it's important that we know we're not the only investor. Obviously, there are certain systems that are Army only, and we have to be the only investors in them. But dual use technology is very appealing because it shows that the company has some runway or has some market potential. They're not just going to disappear 6 months from now if we don't keep them afloat. And also because development gets expensive for something that has to scale up to the Army side, and to know that there's other applications and other funding hopefully coming in as well is really appealing. So yeah, I agree. It certainly is a plus. It's not required. I mean, there's no government application that's going to say you have to show commercial funding raised, but it's certainly something that is appealing when we're looking at trying to pick not winners, but pick companies that could actually transition their tech to the Army one day.
Awesome. So the next question, assuming Pete, glad you're on the call. Thank you so much for joining us. So Zeke, can you indicate how much academic participation there has been, winning or not, at the XTechSearch? Yeah,
thanks. So a couple things I want to say on that, and it's sorry it's not such a short answer, but XTechSearch, that particular competition that's an open topic, is currently run under a prize authority that's limited to US-based small businesses. But we do see a lot of small business spinouts from universities that apply, including some single investigators, professors or grad students that submit ideas prior to even forming an LLC or incorporating, so that essentially we allow any idea to come in. If you want to get prize money, you have to have a cage code. You have to be a registered small business. But so we do see a lot of participation from universities in that sense. We also get a lot of participation on the networking and community building side. So when they were live, we would host our pitch events at a lot of university campuses. We just did our last one in January at the UT Austin Engineering School, as well as out at USC at the Institute for Creative Technologies there. And we host our pitch events there. And this allows the collaboration to occur, some networking to occur, because companies are flying in to give their pitches. So we try to make a day of it and have other programming. The Innovation Combine, was gonna take that to a whole new level with a lot more programming and community building and networking opportunities that would certainly involve academic institutions, which is now going to be done virtually. So really glad this is happening. But the nuance is like the Innovation Combine and other prize competitions that you want to go direct to a contract award can be run under this OSD authority, and under that, universities can apply. So for Innovation Combine, I'm not sure, Mike, if we had any universities apply directly, but for the COVID-19 challenge we certainly did see a lot of university applications, and even some that proceeded on in the competition.
That's a fantastic answer. So I will throw this out there. Zeke, I know you have the ear of Dr. Jetty occasionally. So Pete Poorman is in the research department at UT Dallas. UT Dallas being a great partner of Capital Factory, and unknown to probably a lot of people, but should be known more widely, they have the #2 computer science program in the country. Very great program. They spin out tons of great technologies. They win tons of programs or competitions, rather. At least their students and their researchers do. We have been looking at, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the Air Force STTR program now has an open topic. And one of the big hard problems for universities and small businesses when they're going after STTRs is it's really hard for a university and a small business to team up against a super narrow topic in the time that's required from topic announcement to proposal being due. And you've got to get through. It's hard for a university and a small business to work together. It's hard for small business and the Army to work together, and to try to squeeze it through, 60 days is even harder. And I think my personal opinion is that's why you have the types of organizations that typically win STTRs are really organizations that are they're repeated winners. They're repeated, submitters. They do those kinds of things. And so I really like the idea of being able to pair up a university researcher with a small business that may be pre-product over a technology area that is aligned between what the university is working on and what the small business is working on, and then submit against that open topic together. And so that's actually a program that we're going to launch, and it would be great. So the only open topic I'm aware of that the Army has is XTechSearch, but it would be great if there was some avenue like that inside the Army where we could get university involved a little better, and really just kind of create those reps. So in my opinion, it's just important. It's just as important for small businesses and universities and the DoD to get those reps together so that they kind of know how to work together, building that innovation base beyond, the companies that have 10 or 15 or 20 SIBR and STTR submissions. Just my perspective. So if you get a chance, if you're sitting and having coffee or having a beer with Dr. Jetty, tell him that that's my perspective.
Nice.
Yeah.
Something stronger.
So from Kevin Arenas, what's the best way to engage ARL to partner on technology capabilities? How does ARL do business?
Well, so I mentioned earlier that we're the basic and applied research arm. So we do business a lot of different ways, but one of the biggest ways we engage is through CRADAs, through cooperative research and development agreements. So these are non-funding agreements that are about collaboration, working together to solve a problem. We have access to a lot of experts in a lot of fields of science and engineering, plus facilities and equipment and the problems themselves. So, Army problems, and, bringing a company or a university's capabilities that could help the Army together with those resources that we have available and collaboratively working on a problem is the #1 way we like to do business. So we have a model called Open Campus, and we actually have outposts in 4 cities right now around the country, and they're meant to be these spokes to reach into the universities and the academic communities in these regions, and one of them is in Austin. And the goal is to try to identify talent not only for future recruitment, but also working collaboratively to solve problems. And the CRADA is definitely the most used mechanism for doing that. There is no funding going from the government to the company or to the university under a CRADA, although we can take money from you, please send. But they are the the best way we do business, or the way we do business the most at that basic and applied research level. We also hand out a significant number of grants. All of the extramural research in the Army is funded through ARL's Army Research Office. And those grants tend to go to single or multiple investigators at universities as well. And then we do some amount of contracting, but most of that is done at the engineering level when technologies mature more to the engineering centers like GVSC, Ground Vehicle Systems Center, and others when it's time to actually engineer the product and start integrating and testing. And that's when we start spending more money on contracts.
Awesome. Great question. Appreciate that. Or sorry, great answer. Appreciate that. I'm just scanning through some of the comments here. I saw an announcement in the news, I think it was yesterday, that and I saw Shelley from Texas A&M is on the call. That Army Futures Command just signed a CRADA worth up to $65 million, a 5-year CRADA with Texas A&M University, focused around their new RELIS campus, which is going to be hypersonics, autonomy testing, and all kinds of other great stuff. So those do work and they do happen. Next question from Gabrielle. As you evaluate technologies for Army application, if you find a technology that doesn't meet a current validated Army need, do you have a formal referral to other government agencies or other services? Is there a way to let the Navy know that somebody submitted a perfect autonomous submarine solution to you that you guys just don't need?
Can we first just get a fact check? This person doesn't work for the Government Accountability Office before we answer this question. No, it's a great
you don't
question.
have to answer the question if you don't want to.
I don't necessarily know how to answer it accurately. I'd love to hear from Anita or Mike on that one. But informally, yes. We definitely talk to SOCOM, Air Force, and others, and they're doing programs like we are. We're doing programs like them, and we are at the joint level in OSD definitely talking right now about how we can put all these proposals and all these programs into a bucket that we all have visibility to. So we're not duplicating efforts when we're reviewing things, and we're sharing information about companies that we see that are relevant to other organizations. Currently, at least for XTechSearch, it's a little informal. When we see something that judges earmark or flag for SOCOM, for Navy, for Air Force, or for other government agencies, we'll email out and share it that way. But we do need a better formal process. So that's a great suggestion.
So I think one of the outcomes, I get asked a lot, like, what do I see as the outcome of this defense innovation activity? And Austin's a hub of a lot of it, right? And it is so because we have Army Futures Command. No other place has that. We have the Army Applications Lab. No other place really has that. But then we also have the others. We have the Air Force, and we have DIU and NGA and some others, and we're constantly getting traffic of all these others. And I really think one of the outcomes of that connection of all of that purpleness happening someplace other than the Pentagon is going to help solve that problem, where the technology marketplace becomes a little flatter across the services. That's really one of the outcomes that I hope. Obviously we're not there yet, and it's a problem I think that's been identified, particularly, let's just say, in the field of artificial intelligence. You have the Army AI Task Force, you have the robotics research and development that you guys do at GVSC, and you have the Joint AI Center that's supposed to be kind of the DoD's clearinghouse. But guess what? The Air Force is doing autonomy stuff too, and there's a lot of autonomy happening. There's a lot of AI happening across the services. I really hope that those organizations can get more synergistic, because in some cases, I think that the bigger problem is not that the Army found a technology that the Navy really needs. It's that the Army and Navy and the Air Force are kind of all working on some of the same problems, and there needs to be synergies there. Again, that's just my opinion, and something that I really hope comes out of the collaboration through spaces like Capital Factory. I think we have time for a couple more questions. I guess we still have about 15 minutes. For small businesses who are not developing new technologies, but rather focus on visualization of technology using CG animation, are there avenues to work with AFC and other groups?
I think I can take this one. The short answer is yes. As you can imagine, when we visualize the future, this is across all services. The Army, the Air Force, Navy, we're all operating in a common environment, especially in the future. And it's almost impossible to display without visual graphics. So short answer, yes, of course. One of the best way to get across ideas is visually. The long answer is, if you think about an event like the Innovation Combine, or even like Fed SUPERNOVA in general, these are networking events. So like the folks who Mike works for, the folks who Kevin works for, and the people that I work for, and the people we work with, they'll be there, they'll be present. And then Capital Factory is going to help really provide us a forum to overtly state who we are, what we're hoping to get out of the event, what we bring to the table, who we'd like to meet. So anyone that has a talent, a skill, or an idea they think that we could use, and graphic visualization certainly is one that's being used on a daily basis. Just show up to these events and be very, very frank about who you are and what you need. I believe that Capital Factory is going to be collecting this data up front, and that will let us know who to send to come meet you. So the networking piece, I can't really stress enough. When we say networking is a key output of an event, it sounds a little bit nebulous, but we want you to meet the right people, and we know we are not the ones to tell you who that person is. It's really just getting it out there. And I wanted to address the previous question too. Kind of the same answer. So for the sports fans, the reason we're calling the Innovation Combine a combine at all is because we think people will bring technologies and skills that the Army doesn't know it needs yet, or just doesn't understand. But we want to keep getting those ideas, and we feel by creating a combine atmosphere, the way that an NFL combine would work, where the right coaches and right mentors are there to invest what needs to be invested in that talent, to bring it to a usable level. We want that same atmosphere at the Innovation Combine. So keep showing up. I understand the sunken costs that we've already discussed, the barriers to entry, the cost of doing business with the government. So we're not blind to it. We are trying to make these events ultimately usable for everyone who shows up.
Fantastic. And my short answer to that question would be the XTechSearch topic is open. So submit what you got. And if it's interesting and if it's useful, then they'll probably call you to pitch. So see if we can throw up another question. If there was one that I wanted to get to, because it's a great one, and I can't find it to call out the name of the person, but oh, there we go. Kevin, I would like to be able to talk to you to tell you if my technology is a good fit. I am a Capital Factory member. Well, find me on Union. I have office hours every Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30. Hit me on Union and we will talk within the next week or two. So the other question was that I wanted you to ask was, somebody had asked, hey, we were really close to getting picked up for XTech 5.0. We got some good feedback. Can we submit again?
Yes, definitely. We encourage that as long as there's at least some improvement or change to the proposal. To be transparent, it's always best to lay that out in your proposal. So don't try to hide the fact you applied for. Just say, I'm a previous applicant from XTech 5. I got this feedback from the judges. I've now made, this change to the proposal, and then lay it out. And that way you avoid the instance of a judge getting a hold of it, saying, "Oh, we've seen this before," and sort of dismissing it as something that's already been evaluated. So definitely reapply and try to incorporate any of the feedback that you got in that application if you can.
Awesome. I think there are a couple of more questions that we haven't gotten to. Scott Gray asks, what are the funding levels for the various gates for XTechSearch, and do we know what the contract awards are going to be for Innovation Combine yet? Everybody wants to know that.
Yeah. So okay. So it's the Zeke show here. So the XTechSearch prize pool. First of all, I'll just in xtechsearch.army.mil explains everything. Plus, getting our website traffic up never hurts. If you're really appreciative of this webinar today, you can actually subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need 15 more subscribers before we get our URL. But anyway, all of this is kind of answered on the site. There's a really nice graphic that lays out the prize money, how it's paid out, and what happens at every phase. And same with for the Innovation Combine and any other Army prize competition. They're all posted there. But essentially, we give a $5,000 prize for just reading your white paper for the ones that we accept. Traditionally, we came up with that amount as the amount to try to offset travel costs to come out to a live pitch event. So you're 2 people to come travel down and pitch live. We didn't want to have that be money spent out of pocket. So there's a $5,000 prize to do that. And then from the pitch round, we give $10,000 to go to the major conference where we do the semifinals, and that's usually the AUSA conference. And then there's 10 $120,000 prizes given out to the finalists. We also do a showcase at the very end of the competition. So the 10 finalists go through an accelerator program that offers a lot of business building programming as well as learning and demystifying the Army and how to do business with the Army. And then they do a final showcase where they all come together and demo their technologies again at an AUSA conference. And we give out a $250,000 grand prize there as well. But that's XTechSearch. But the model of Innovation Combine and some other competitions are following is more of those first 2 phases where there's a $5,000 prize for a good idea. Come talk to us, and then there's a higher prize if you make it past that. So Mike can talk about the Innovation Combine prizes and what their contract amounts are.
Yeah, thanks, Zeke. For Innovation Combine, there's a grand total of $920K in funding available. How we're breaking that down is $320K is going to be in prize award, and $600K divided into 2, so 2 $300K OTA contract awards at the end. Those will be selected on the 14th and 15th of July during the Innovation Combine. So if you are part of the Fed SUPERNOVA and are present at the Innovation Combine, I believe, I haven't seen an agenda yet, but probably sometime at the end of the 15th of July, the government will have down selected the top 2 companies that will receive or go into negotiations with the government for 2 $300K OTA. And as I mentioned, there will be some prize awards with that along the way. So $920K in total.
Outstanding. Great answer. So let me run through a couple of these real quick because we're running out of time. So we've got a question whether there's any involvement with the NCMS or SOSIC consortia. So Mike, you guys, I know, work with the National Advanced Mobility Consortium. Are there any other consortia that you guys run OTAs with?
For GVSC specifically, yes, we do 2 OTA consortium model. The first one is with with NAMC, as you mentioned, National Advanced Mobility Consortia, and the second one is our Detroit Arsenal. I'm trying to remember. We call it DA squared. Losing my train of thought. Detroit Arsenal Automotive. It's our second OTA consortia. So again, doing the consortia model approach is successful for us, but that's not the only way to be successful with an OTA. You can do standalone OTAs. But going back to the consortium approach, there are websites available that has a whole host of consortiums available. I know companies that are part of most of them, if not all of them. You don't have to be. It just depends on the scope. It depends on the type of technology you work on and how you can make an impact in that consortia. If you're a large prime and you touch a lot of technology areas, you might be part of a lot of consortia. If you're a small business, you might just want to focus on 1 or 2. And yes, there's a fee. It's a pay to play, but there's a lot of services that come along with that fee. Those fees vary from consortia to consortium.
Fantastic. A couple more questions. So Dave Skeen, I'm going to talk to you one-on-one, and we will answer that question for you. Somebody asked, Regina asked, we are a AFWorks Phase 2 winner. We should qualify for an OTA. Yes, everybody qualifies for an OTA. There aren't any restrictions. The only restrictions are if you are not a non-traditional, then you would have to put up 30% or 30 or a third of the funding. But if you guys are a D2, P2 winner, my guess is that, well, you are a small business. My guess is that you don't exceed the contract threshold in your prior fiscal year to be qualified or to be not qualified as a non-traditional. So short answer, yes. Macon answered Victor's question. I think we're probably through. All right, so we have a question from Scott Schneider for GVSC for Mike. Do you have any needs for modeling and simulation, synthetic environments, AR, VR within GVSC? And could this be a target for a future innovation combine?
It certainly could be a target for a future innovation combine. Absolutely. I think all technology areas that help the Army. I mean, Innovation Combine isn't specifically focused on GVSC, so Innovation Combine is Army-wide. In reference to modeling and simulation, for GVSC, if that modeling and simulation supports vehicle technologies advancing, yeah, that we would have a need for that. If that modeling simulation is focused on soldier training, that's not specifically in the Ground Vehicle System Center's wheelhouse. It is within the Army's wheelhouse for sure. You just have to know what center or lab specifically your technology focuses on. So modeling simulation cuts across a lot. So the answer is probably yes. We could take advantage of those technologies. Maybe we already do. Just depends on if it's vehicle specific, maybe robot specific, maybe soldier centric. But yeah, I mean that's definitely an important technology area for the Army for sure.
So Mike, so Scott's company, HTX Labs in Houston, Texas, they're actually working on a couple of Air Force programs, one of which is Maintenance Next. I don't know if you're familiar with that program, but it's basically, think of a mechanic can be either trained or actually visually assisted in execution of performing a maintenance task, right? And so you can create content that shows you how to change the tire on a C-130 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, obviously, ground combat systems, I was a cavalryman for 4 years. So I know better than most that ground combat systems are maintenance intensive, and frequently the maintenance needs to happen at the operator level, and the operator has no clue what to do. So that seems like it could be a pretty useful technology for GVSC to pair with some of their systems. Have you guys had any thoughts about doing that? Are there any active programs that you could mention, or is it just a good idea that you'll take back to the next POM?
Kevin, we certainly looked at that technology back. It was probably my second or third project, as a matter of fact. We worked with a nonprofit organization working on an augmented reality ground vehicle maintenance, kind of a displaying on a 3D screen to do what you just said, help the operator, the user, maintain that vehicle in a 3D environment. So yeah, that has absolute application with what we do from a maintenance perspective, no doubt about it. I don't work in that tech space, unfortunately. I couldn't tell you if anything is still working on, but the technology itself has applicability. It's definitely warranted. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I haven't seen it mature beyond what was available in the mid 2000s, around 2005 or 6. I know the issues back then were with latency, but that's what the technology was limited to back then. So it's 2020 now. It'd be very exciting to see where that technology has come.
Fantastic. So Eric Prinson's question, what about small companies that are not venture backed? Yes, absolutely. You guys are still eligible to participate. There's no requirement that you be venture backed. That was just really the incentive, again, for the establishment of the Defense Innovation Unit, was this idea that, there are hundreds of billions, if not trillions of R&D effectively dollars that are being deployed by the venture community into emerging tech startups. And we should create incentives for those companies to go after government customers as well. For David Soul, is there room for other government agencies to participate in Supernova? Absolutely. Reach out to, I would really like for Justin or Rebecca to give me permission to share my screen again, because I want to put the interested slide back up one last time. There we go. Reach out at that email address and we will figure it out. So I think that that is all of the questions and also all of the time. So I'm going to say a couple of things. Startups, you should attend Fed Supernova, because we're going to have tons of hungry investors, defense industry execs, potential customers. Everybody's going to be looking for the next big dual use technology, and you can learn how to work with government, and maybe they're going to find you. Investors, guess what? Those startups are there looking for you. You're going to get a ton of deal flow, as well as you're going to be able to see what's interesting to both industry and the government, so that you can find and make some better investments. All of our defense industry partners should definitely attend, because we're going to be talking about technologies that you guys want to know about, as well as I've heard General Murray and many others say many, many times, none of these technologies, at least in the near term, are going to be able to get into these systems without you. Y'all are really the key to rapid transition, integration, and scaling. And then interested military members as well. We've got a very special and very low ticket price for you guys. And just come. I mean, just the same way that you might go to AUSA National and see what's going on in the newest emerging defense systems and technology. Come join us at Fed Supernova. We can't wait to see you there. Mike, Zeke, and Anita, thank you so much for joining us. I personally am really excited to continue to work with you guys to produce an amazing Innovation Combine event, and I'm really proud to have you guys joining us with Fed Supernova. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.